Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Well, he won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. He's a real athlete, so give him your respect. He's got intensity, integrity, intelligence too. Oh, it's true, it's damn true. So if he ever finds you and you're chanting you suck, then he'll douse you in dairy with his big milk truck. And with one angle slam, he'll lay you out on the floor. So listen up, it's time to go. It's the Kurt Angle Show.
Hey, this is Kurt Angle, and welcome to the Kurt Angle Show. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the day I signed with TNA, Impact Wrestling, and all the events leading up to it. But first, let me introduce to you my co-host, Conrad Thompson. How you doing today, Conrad?
Man, I'm excited to be here. I'm still pumped about last week's episode. I think Unforgiven 2001 might be the best episode we've done. It was real. It was emotional. It was an important time for our country, for you personally, and for your family. And now we're here to talk about a different time. You're not still getting going in the WWF. You've left the company, and now people are wondering what's next for Kurt. So if you haven't already, check out the Leaving the WWF episode, available now in our archives. But let's sort of just hit the reset button and give everybody a catch up of where the wrestling business is at the time. Sure. And even MMA. In America, you've got TNA, which of course is total nonstop action. You've also got Ring of Honor and a bunch of independent promotions, but there's really no one at the level of AEW. Over in Japan, you've got New Japan Pro Wrestling, of course, and All Japan still limping along. Pro Wrestling Noah, 0-1, and Hustle. And then as far as MMA goes, of course, here in America, you've got the UFC, Pride Fighting Championships over in Japan, K1, and I believe the IFL. At this point, Bellator doesn't even really exist. So what were you thinking was next for Kurt Angle on the heels of leaving WWF? Did you think I'm definitely going to TNA, or did you think you would try some other things?
Well, all I wanted at the time was a break.
Yeah.
The issue was once I got released and everyone found out I was released, all these promotions started calling my agent. And I was thinking to myself, what am I missing out on? Like there's a lot of opportunity out there that I never even tried to get into. I never pursued it. So I decided that I was going to start pursuing it. So it was business back as usual. But I was going to set up business for when I took my break. I was still going to take a break, but I was setting up something for after my break.
So I know you had been running hard and you needed a break, the vigors of the road and working nonstop and trying to fight through injuries. It had to be a pretty stressful time. But when it came time to sort of court these new opportunities, did you have the same agent now that you did back then?
Yes. I had the same agent, and he had experience with contracts, and I've had him since I started in pro wrestling, so I continued on with him. His name's Dave Hawk, and he did a tremendous job, and he really stepped up for me after I left WWE. He was the one that was negotiating the deals and getting everything done, so he really did an excellent job of getting me a new contract.
By and large, the WWE really wants to have their arms around everything, from what I understand. But it feels like now this may have been the first time you had been this popular with this amount of, I don't know, publicity or support from the mainstream, that you could really field some of those opportunities, because prior to you leaving WWE, everything had to be approved by them, right?
Right. So now, after my release, I was free to do whatever I wanted. And it didn't really come to me until it occurred. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to get approval for anything anymore. So this is a lot different. Freedom is a lot different. It's good and bad, because it's good. You have more opportunities to pursue, but it's bad because you're not under contract and you're not getting paid at the time. So there's a give and take.
Talk to me a little bit about, your family situation was different back then. You're trying to navigate, hey, here's my new life, so to speak, with regards to income. Do you have a meeting with your agent and say, hey, we need to get to X just to sort of maintain the same quality of life and lifestyle that you had enjoyed? Or was it really, hey, let's stretch and see what we can do?
Well, I wanted something that was long-term, to take care of myself and my family. When you're in professional wrestling for 20 something years, you're going to beat your body up, and you need something in return for that. And hopefully it is money that would take care of you for the rest of your life. So that was the first priority for me. The other one was just an opportunity to spread my wings again and show the talents that I had. And, in WWE, I had a great career there, an excellent career, but I knew I was just getting started. Being in the business for 6 years, you don't reach your peak until 7, 8, 9 years in. So I knew I never reached my peak yet. So I wanted to spread my wings somewhere else.
I'm sure you're getting flooded with lots of opportunities, some better than others. Do you remember some rather silly or memorable ones that came your way that for whatever reason didn't work out?
Well, there was one-off fights. I think one with Hoist Gracie. I think it was Bodog that offered me $500,000. And the reason I turned that down is because Hoist Gracie is a badass.
Yeah.
He's one of the best MMA fighters of all time. And if I'm going to fight him, it better be a lot more than $500,000.
Right.
It better be like 5 million, So that was something I did not pursue. Another one was Bob Sapp. I was supposed to fight him over in Japan. I'm not sure if it was for K1 or who it was, but they were very interested. And, we talked about it. They wrote up a contract, but nothing ever transpired from it. So that was a one-off. I think they were going to give me $600,000 for that fight, and that wasn't enough for me to do a one-off. So it was I was in a situation where I just wanted to do something more long-term.
In regards to the Bob Sapp fight, there's been rumor and innuendo over the years in that MMA community that a lot of those fights that Bob had over in Japan were maybe a little more theater, maybe a little more wrestling. Yeah. Were you of the impression that was going to be a work too, or did you think that was going to be a shoot fight?
To my knowledge, I heard it was going to be a shoot fight. So, for me to fight a shoot fight for $600,000, I would have done it if it was a work shoot.
Sure.
Half work, half shoot. But for a straight up fight, I was expecting a lot more money.
I feel strongly that saving money is important. If it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit, with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com. Did you think, just based on the steam and the momentum that you had, the popularity that you had, that you were going to be worth more to that promotion, and that's the reason you wanted more? Or were you nervous maybe in the Hoist Gracie standpoint that, hey, I'm injured and I haven't been actively training in this, and this guy's been doing it full time, I might lose. In fact, I probably will lose, because when it goes to the ground, he's going to know more about jiu-jitsu than I do. So I don't want to ruin some brand equity that I've built for myself as the wrestling machine for a rather nominal amount of money in the scheme of things.
Well, you're right. You have a lot to lose and a lot to gain. I mean, it all depends on how you look at it. But when you're fighting someone like Royce Gracie, you better be prepared. I mean, I would have had to have at least a year of training in.
Right.
And they weren't going to give me a year to get that done. So this was more of a quick fight, set up, let's do this, get it done. And I wasn't game for that.
Yeah, because and I'm sure a lot of our listeners may not be putting two and two together, but the way you lay it out, it sounds like to me, hey, here's this guy who we know has not been training in amateur wrestling, even on an active basis, on a daily basis, because he's been in the entertainment world. So if we can catch him straight off of quote unquote Hollywood fighting and now put him into a real fight situation, we're going to get a whole lot of new buzz and steam behind Royce Gracie. And then we're going to move on without him. And then, you know, we've made money off your name, not the other way around.
Without a doubt. You're absolutely right, Conrad. And that was my concern. I didn't want to lose popularity and my reputation over one fight when that's what they wanted to do, was build up Royce Gracie.
Hypothetically, because I know you were at least keeping somewhat of tabs on what the UFC was doing. When you go back to, say, the infancy of the UFC, if they could have set up, you know, let's pretend in an alternate universe, there was an opportunity for you to do that, maybe right before the Olympics or right after the Olympics, we'll call it when you were, you know, peak Kurt Angle, so to speak, in amateur wrestling. How do you think a fight with you and Royce would have went?
Without me training jiu-jitsu?
Right. Because back then nobody really did, right? It was styles make fights. It's a wrestler versus a jiu-jitsu guy. And he really took great pride in being able to survive and quote unquote pull guard, get guys on their back, and they weren't used to being there, blah, blah, blah. Well,
I think that me personally, I think I would have dominated the fight.
Yeah, I agree.
Royce would have caught me in something and had me tap out. So, you know, he is so established at what he does, you know, with jiu-jitsu and all his submissions. He's one of the very best. And to go in there untrained, not knowing what to expect, you're going to get caught. There's no doubt about it. You know, I would have had to knock him out before he tapped me out. And I don't think that would have happened.
As a reminder, because I know we've got a lot, mostly pro wrestling fans listening to this, and there is some crossover of MMA, but Royce Gracie is really the guy in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in those early UFCs who probably introduced the world to what jiu-jitsu was. I mean, for years, people would sort of fantasize, what would happen if a boxer fought a wrestler? What would happen if a jiu-jitsu guy fought a boxer? But the world found out when it goes to the ground, jiu-jitsu is going to win in the end. Now, that guy might take some damage along the way, but if you don't know how to manipulate your body the way a jiu-jitsu master does, then it's probably going to be the end of you. And everybody after that started to train in all disciplines. So it begs the question, later in life, once we knew what we found out about jiu-jitsu, did you ever dabble in that just in your free time or spare time, learning a few things?
Yes, actually, when I took off, when I left WWE, I started training a little bit at the Pittsburgh Fight Club, and I did it for about 3 or 4 months. And you know, I even when I signed with TNA, I was still doing the training, and I wanted to become more knowledgeable because I wanted to keep my options open to have a big MMA fight down the road. So I started training jiu-jitsu and stand-up fighting, you know, boxing. Was learning all the trades so I could be well-versed and well prepared if I ever did have a fight. But, you know, it never occurred. And I got lost into wrestling again. I love pro wrestling, and, you know, there was nothing that was going to keep me from it. You know, when UFC offered me a deal when I left WWE, it was a really good deal. But I told Dana that I had to wrestle too, and he said there's no way you can wrestle and fight. And he's right. That was a stupid idea that I had in my head, that I could think that I could do both.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have survived very long doing both. And but that's what I wanted, and Dana would not allow me to, so I had to turn down his offer.
And just to add context to that, Dana wouldn't allow you to because he didn't want people to assume that the UFC was a work or fixed, because that rumor had been out there for the Japanese sort of counterpart, whether it was Pride or K1 or whatever, there were whispers that, well, the Yakuza's involved and all these other conspiracy theories. These aren't on the up and up legitimate fights. Dana didn't want any hint of that in the UFC, right?
No, he didn't. He wanted to make sure that everybody knew it was legitimate. And he was going to make sure that would happen.
So I'm curious, when you first start training jiu-jitsu, I'm sure there had to be some guys when you go into that local Pittsburgh fight club who were looking at each other thinking, wait, he doesn't know any jiu-jitsu. I want to roll with him first because I want to tell my friends I tapped out Kurt Angle. That had to happen, right?
Actually, no. I trained with the trainer, the head trainer there every day, just him and I. So he was just teaching me moves, setups to submissions, how to, get into the guard. What's the safest way to do it? How to fight from underneath, how to fight from on top. So we just worked out a lot of technique. We didn't spar very much. But we also worked on stand-up fighting, boxing, kicking, kicks. We did a lot of stuff, but it was mainly just training, sparring.
It's just fascinating to me when a guy like you, who has literally lived his entire life, whatever you do, don't find yourself in this position. And now all of a sudden in jiu-jitsu, it's like, oh no, that's fine. It's okay to start there. That's a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah, being on your back is the weirdest thing in the world when you're an amateur wrestler, because that's the last place you want to be. But if in jiu-jitsu, you're comfortable down there, and you can attack from down there, and you can actually submit somebody from underneath. So it's totally the opposite, and that's why they don't mesh very well together when you have a wrestler and a jiu-jitsu guy face each other. The wrestler's going to take him down and dominate, but the jiu-jitsu guy is going to eventually catch him in some submission
because he's comfortable down there. And I'm curious, in your training, were you learning with a gi or without a gi?
Without a gi.
Yeah, because that's what it would have been if you were in an actual fight on pay-per-view or what have you. So let's talk very briefly, because I know we've talked a little bit about the MMA stuff too long. How long, if at all, did you have a non-compete from the WWE? Did you have the standard 90-day, or was it you're free to go today?
Ironically, I was free to go that day I signed. There were no strings attached. Vince McMahon released me that day, and I was free to do whatever I wanted. And, I was very grateful for that because, not that I was planning on going anywhere else at that particular time. When I signed the release, I just wanted to get out. I wanted to break. I wanted to get away. And when I did, all these promotions started calling me, contacting me, and were interested in signing me. And it was like, okay, why am I, I didn't want to sign with anyone but WWE. In other words, I was going to take a break and come back.
Right.
I wanted to show my loyalty to WWE, but when I started thinking about the different promotions contacting me and the interest they had and the money they wanted to give me, I was like, I wasn't even happy in WWE. Why do I want to go back? So it was like, why am I thinking that way? Why am I pigeon-toeing myself to stay in the company when I didn't want to be there in the first place? And, a lot of it was my fault, the actions that I did. The one thing I do regret about WWE is when I got injured, I didn't take enough time to rest. I always rushed back because I always wanted to get back as quickly as possible. And that's why I didn't enjoy my career there. It was my fault. But I do remember I was not happy there. So I had opportunities to go elsewhere, and I was going to pursue them.
Well, what's interesting is, when you leave WWE, and don't get me wrong, back then and even now, WWE is the big league of professional wrestling, but that comes with a trade-off. You're not as in control of your creative. Somewhere else, you're going to have more control creatively and more say. But in addition to that, you're probably going to have a much more strenuous travel schedule with WWE. So if you could enjoy a lighter schedule and have more say over your creative, for maybe not the same money, but not too far off, that all of a sudden looks very attractive, right?
Oh, yes. You all those things that you listed that you just said is exactly why I want to pursue another company. Especially the money. And not only that, it's working less dates, a lot less dates. And that's what I wanted. And that's the kind of deal that I was looking for. And ironically, TNA is the one that offered it.
I want to mention too, because context is king, is what Eric Bischoff always says. When someone, I think a lot of our listeners just think of Kurt Angle, the wrestler. And so when they hear, oh, for a lot less dates, they think, oh, Kurt didn't want to work. Yeah. I also want to contextualize this. Kurt's also at the time a husband and a father. So think about that. You want to be home with your wife and kids too, right? You don't want to be in an airport and in a different Marriott somewhere across the globe every single night. It would be nice to take your kids to school and see a little league ball game, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're living on the road, you forfeit all of that. So, less dates doesn't mean I don't want to work. It means work is not more important than everything else in my life, including my family, right?
Right. And also don't forget, it'll prolong your career.
Sure.
States, you're going to have a longer career. You're going to be able to go many more years. So, to take both of those things into consideration, it's a no-brainer why you'd want to do it.
What was your support system like at the time? Was everybody pulling for you, like family-wise? Your family unit at the time, they were a big advocate of you walking away from WWE?
Yeah, they were all supportive. They knew that my time had come, that I was burned out, and I needed somewhere else to spread my wings and show my skills with. And they knew that I wasn't happy with WWE for the last year I was there. And, I was very vocal about it with my family, and I was pretty vocal about it at work too, at WWE, which, I pissed off a lot of the office people, but that
it is what it is.
It is what it is. Exactly.
The Observer would write in regards to you, of course, he is now the single most in-demand individual, perhaps in the history of the industry. He now has the ability to, at least on a short-term basis, make more money than he ever has before, and perhaps in the process, destroy his body even further. While few will publicly say so, virtually every major promotion from Ring of Honor to several groups in Japan to UFC to numerous other MMA groups and everyone in between has expressed everything from curiosity to extreme interest in using Angle as he heals up from the current batch of injuries. Nobody has said so publicly. Privately, everyone, and I mean everyone you can think of, is trying to contact him and talking about ideas of how he could be used. While he can write his own ticket in pro wrestling, from the ability to work a light schedule for big money in Japan or TNA, it is in MMA where he has the ability to get a one-day payday that could very conceivably approach his annual $1 million salary from working in WWE. Boy, just reading that back, this had to be a pretty exciting time just about, hey, what's possible and what could be next, right?
Yes, I was actually pleasantly surprised that everybody was pursuing me. I being in WWE, and you're actually trapped in that company, so you don't know what your opportunities are until you end up leaving it. And there was a lot of opportunity for me, and I was very excited about it.
When you had conversations with Dana White, and again, I don't want to insinuate that I'm suggesting that Dana would necessarily fix fights, but Dana is a fight promoter, and he understands that Mike Tyson didn't, become the big megastar by immediately jumping into what I guess you would call deep water. You're not going to make the super fight one. You're going to build the legend, make this guy a big draw, make him look like an unbeatable machine, just like they did with Ronda Rousey. And then eventually, unfortunately, it's just a part of the fight game. Everyone loses. And when that happens, you have to figure out, okay, how do we get him back on track? Did you have a conversation with Dana about, I don't mean to say that they were going to fix the fights, but they were going to give you some rather easier opponents for your style to get you started and make you this mega draw and then set up a super fight? Did you have that type of conversation?
Yeah, in a roundabout way. He wasn't very specific on saying, hey, we're going to protect you when we start. Right. But the opponent that he gave me at the beginning when we were going to start was a good opponent, very intriguing from a public interest standpoint, especially a pro wrestling fan standpoint, and very intriguing because he didn't have a lot of experience in MMA. He only fought a couple times, but I had a little episode with him in the WWE. That was Daniel Puder. And when Dana said that to me, I was like, you serious? That's all just Daniel Puder? Not that I thought that Daniel was easy, because, you know, he had my arm trapped. He could have broke my arm when we did our little episode on SmackDown. But I knew that I could beat Daniel Puder. And, you know, especially if I rested and let my neck heal. When I worked with Daniel Puder in WWE, I just got back from my neck surgery, and my arms were so weak I couldn't do 5 push-ups.
Wow.
Really vulnerable. And I'm not sure why the WWE had me get in the ring with Daniel Puder, knowing that my condition, but they did. And, you know, I ended up getting caught in a situation that it could have been turned ugly, but fortunately, Daniel pinned himself when it happened. He was on his back, just like a jiu-jitsu guy would be. But
sure.
it was about pinning your opponent. That's what it was. The competition was. And Daniel was trying to tap me out. So he didn't understand the rules. But he did catch me. And I knew that. And I knew I was very capable of being caught again, but I was going to make sure he didn't. So I was excited about the first fight. You know, Daniel Puder, formidable opponent for me at that particular time, not too overbearing, not somebody that was well known in MMA. It was a good starting fight for me. So I knew Dana was caring about my career in the MMA, because he was giving me an opponent that I could possibly beat.
And he was being a good promoter, because if you were a hardcore wrestling fan, you knew the backstory.
It was huge. Yes,
absolutely.
Make a lot of money with that story. Yeah.
So of course we know eventually Brock Lesnar is going to make the leap into MMA, but that was after you're already up and going with TNA. So you're at least having these conversations ahead of time, but he had left the WWF before you did, and made some money over in Japan. Were you talking to Brock about what maybe was possible over in Japan?
Well, he called me out of the blue. I guess he didn't want to do a job for anybody over in Japan when he was IWGP champion. It was the third belt that we wrestled for, IWGP third belt. I heard Brock was stripped of that title, but he wasn't stripped because I beat him for that title. Brock wanted me to come over to Japan to wrestle him so he could lose to me, and I would end up losing to somebody over in New Japan. So that was his idea. I told him I'd do it. You know, we were good friends, very close. And if he wanted me to come over and do that for him, I was willing to do it. So, you know, TNA gave me the approval, and, you know, obviously TNA got paid for those events,
of course,
because they were paying me. And so I didn't see any money from the events in Japan, New Japan, for the IWGP title. Even when I continued to defend it, and I think I did 3 more times. So TNA was getting that money, and that's when I put a stop to it. And I said, okay, I can't be going over Japan and not making any money. You know, this is ridiculous. So that's when I dropped the title, because they wanted me to hold it for a while longer. And I said, no, I'm going to drop it the next time I wrestle in Japan.
It is fascinating to think. We saw you and Brock, of course, in WWE, and then we saw you guys in Japan, but you just barely missed each other with this preliminary conversation about MMA, because when Brock decides he's going to move on from wrestling in Japan, he jumps, you know, both feet into the fire for MMA. And it is kind of interesting to think that maybe one of the UFC super fights one day could have been Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. That would have been pretty interesting.
Well, you know what? I would not want to fight Brock out of respect for him and the friendship we had. But if the money were right, I know he'd want to fight me.
Sure.
And I know I would want to fight him too. So it is all about money. Sometimes it kind of sucks. You know, you can't take that personally, because you're trying to provide money for your family, to take care of them. And that comes first before friendship. So I'm sure that Brock and I would have, if they would have gave us the right figure, we probably would have went at it.
If you would have gone into that, do you think you would have competed at heavyweight, or would you have tried to cut and see if you could get down to 205?
Oh, I was close to 205 at the time. So light heavyweight would have been my weight class. There's no doubt about that. But would I fight heavyweight? Sure. Certain fights I would do that. But, these guys, you're giving up a lot of weight. And, that could take its toll on you during a fight. If they're leaning on you and getting you tired, that's when your quickness goes away, and you can't afford to lose that. So it's a tough thing to do, but I probably would have fought a few of the heavyweights.
It is interesting to think, though, had you done that, maybe we would have seen you and Randy Couture, or you and Chuck Liddell, or you and Tito Ortiz, because 205 was really where the money was for UFC in that era. I mean, that was
very hot at the time. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about where we are with all things TNA, because that's really ultimately where you're going to land. Meltzer would say there's a thought process that goes with it, that WWE and you cutting ties with WWE means they no longer saw value in you as a performer worth the TV time to invest. But then on September 1st, this is in the Observer, quote, sending out a message on its mobile alert stating that the meeting before between Angle and WWE executives was heated and confrontational, and they labeled Angle as an emotional wreck when he left the building. When you see that the WWE is, I don't know, this doesn't feel like it's very WWE-esque. It almost feels like they're playing dirty a little bit at the time. Did that hurt your feelings? Does it generate a call from you to Vince, or what do you remember about that?
You know what? It didn't hurt my feelings. I was a little bit deterred by it, but I was an emotional wreck.
Okay.
I was hard to deal with, especially the last 5 or 6 months. So them putting out that statement, I'm sure that they partly put it out because they needed to show whose fault it was, I guess. But at the same time, I think they put it out there to show that, or to refrain from me signing with another company.
Yeah.
Probably scaring another company from wanting to sign me because I'm in a quote unquote emotional wreck. So, I don't expect these new companies to make a decision from a statement from WWE. I expect them to sit down with me personally and find out how I'm doing at that time. And, and talk to me as a person. That's how I would evaluate a person, was how they were in that moment at that particular time, not in the past. And that's what WWE was doing.
You did have a statement on your website at the time. Many say I am, some may say I'm not, but I want you to know that over the 6 solid years of nonstop wrestling action under my belt, from the shows to the world tours, I treated every single match as if it were my last. I've never known a time in my life, from training, competition, or entertainment, where I have not tried to give you over 100%. I honestly do not know of any other way to wrestle or perform, and I've always wanted to give you, the fans, what I would expect to see. So I feel like that's a pretty nice message to put out there, that, hey, you're not addressing that they've maybe slandered you a little bit, but you're also saying, hey, I'm giving 100% and I always will for you fans, which is a nice message.
Yeah, because it's all about the fans.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what WWE thinks or what TNA thinks or what the promotion thinks. It's all about what the fans think. And I wanted them to know I've always put everything on the line for them. And I've always done that and will continue to do that until the day I die.
Another thing you put out at the time is that you didn't feel like you had reached your peak as a pro wrestler, which we just briefly touched on. You listed Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker, saying that they really hit their prime after where you were so far time-wise in your career. Quote, but there's one big difference between us. I'm by far the most aggressive and intense athlete of all on the mat. When I step into the ring, I treat it as real. It feels real. And then I play it like a real shoot fight, which, I do think is the differentiator between, say, your style versus a guy like a Ric Flair or an Undertaker and what have you. But is that also a nice phrasing to help sell yourself to potential MMA opportunities?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yes, especially the work shoot ones, the K1s and the pride fighting, where they were rumored that, some of those fights were half work, half shoots. So, yeah, I was trying to market myself into those markets and seeing if, testing the waters and seeing if they would bite. Without a doubt, you're right.
Another quote here from you. Injuries have always been a natural part of the business in my life, but where I have failed is not taking the time to recover. When I'm out, the mental stress sitting back becomes worse than the physical pain. Something tells my inner soul to go back regardless of the condition. The funny thing is, this obsession is what the industry loves, but this obsession can also be my destruction. And you even were quoted as saying that the pain had gotten so bad from some of these injuries that you would have to take a Motrin just to get out of bed and take out the garbage. That's when you probably realize, hey man, something's got to change, right?
Yeah. And it was a hell of a lot more than the Motrin ad. But yeah, the way I wrestled and sitting at home, I always wanted to be at home when I was on the road, especially when I was injured. But when I got home, I always wanted to be on the road. It was a really mental FUCK.
Yeah.
To myself, I think it's my OCD always compulsing about things, and you're sitting at home and wondering what the boys are doing on the road and how the show's going, and you're sitting there watching TV trying to rest your body. You get a little restless and you want to do something. So you start thinking about, when I get back there, what am I going to do? How am I going to treat this? What changes am I going to make? And you end up being very restless, and you want to get back to work, and it doesn't matter how bad the injury is. You make yourself believe you're okay and you're going to go back and do it. And that's what I did, especially with my neck. The 5 different broken necks that I had, always rush back. And I never should have. I should have taken the right amount of time, because I would have had a longer career and I would have been healthier throughout my career if I didn't have all those neck injuries. That really set me back.
Well, one of the things we haven't known each other a very long time, but one of the things I know about you is when Kurt Angle says he's going to do something, he's going to do everything in his power to do it. And I know that you also don't want to let anybody down. So I feel like you were probably in a spot where when you're at work, you feel like, man, I don't want to let the family down. I need to be there. But when you're at home, man, I don't want to let work down. I need to be there. And I think a lot of business people who maybe identify as workaholics, they feel that way too, where they want to do well and provide by their family, but they do it so long and they're like, man, am I missing the really valuable time with my family? But then when they're home, man, I'm missing an opportunity to take care of them, and I'm missing work. I need to get back to work and do right by them. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Catch 22. You're absolutely right.
Let's talk about TNA. TNA at this time is in the process of one of their bigger months in company history. We're moving into prime time in November, and it's going to change the whole creative team as well. They're removing Mike Tenay, Scott D'Amore, and Jeremy Borash, and instead installing Vince Russo. That would have been hilarious. Vince Russo is the head of creative. What were your conversations like with TNA? Did Dixie call you? Did Jarrett call you? Did Russo call you? Who first comes in touch with you about the opportunity to go to TNA?
Dixie Carter. She called me and we talked on the phone, and then Jeff ended up calling me, and Jeff Jarrett, and we discussed a possibility of working together, and they told me to write down a figure, and they would reach out to me the next day, and we'll see if we can make it work. So it was relatively easy, painless, quickest deal I ever did. I wrote down my figure, and the next day they said, okay, we'll fly up and sign you. It was
that easy.
Yeah. No negotiations. It was just one-time thing. And I got what I wanted, and I was very happy.
So let's talk about the terms of that contract. I don't want you to tell me the number, but JR has a conversation a lot with me where he says, for the wrestling business, it comes down to cash and creative, the 2 C's. So you've got the cash figured out. Is creative even discussed at that point?
No, it wasn't. I was surprised, but I knew that they rehired Vince Russo as the head of creative. I was excited about that. because I never worked with Vince Russo before.
Y'all just barely missed each other, right?
Yes, we barely missed each other in WWE, WWF at the time. So I was really excited because I knew how talented he was, and I was looking forward to his creative ideas.
So what was your impression of working with Dixie Carter?
She was all business. I loved her. She also has a motherly careness about her that really makes her stand apart from others. She really cares about the individuals, without a doubt. Always cared about me. Always put my health and my life first. That's what I really enjoyed about Dixie. If I wasn't feeling good or if I couldn't work a certain night, I could just tell her I could take the night off and she'd be okay with it. When I had to go to rehab, she paid me the whole time I went there, and she even let me have 3 months off afterward. Like she was the most giving person I've ever been with. And it wasn't always about money with her. It was about being a humanitarian.
What about Jeff Jarrett? Back then, I don't think you had spent much time with him, right? I mean, I think your times in the WWE would have just barely crossed paths or maybe missed each other slightly.
Yeah, so I didn't know Jeff that well. He was in WWE when I started training there. So I would be at TVs with him where I do dark matches, and Jeff would be on the TV shows. But I didn't talk to him that much. But I got to have a really good relationship with him when I signed with TNA. And, Jeff's always been a good guy, and he was always good to me.
When you're having these initial conversations, are you having more of the business conversation with Dixie and the actual wrestling conversation with Jeff?
Yes, pretty much. The money, Dixie, the wrestling ideas was Jeff and Vince Russo, actually. So, that's how they did it. That's how they ran the business, and they continue to do it that way.
This sounds silly because you sort of laid out that you just asked for a certain amount of money and then they agreed with it. Were they your best financial offer, or were they just the most quote unquote stable?
They were one of the top financial offers that I got. I put it this way. It was 7 figures.
Okay.
It was a 5-year deal, and I ended up signing that 5-year deal again when the contract was up. So they always took care of me. So, I got 11 years out of them for 7 figures a year. That was enough for me.
Yeah.
I was good with that, especially being a smaller company like TNA. I don't think anybody else was getting paid nearly as much as I was. I think the next guy in line was making like 300. So, there was a big gap. They were taking a big, gigantic chance with me. And I knew that. And I was very grateful for that.
Well, it was a landmark signing for TNA. Eric says context is king. To add the context to this, you were considered to be, and had been for quite some time, the best wrestler in the world. And if you're trying to compete in prime time and you're trying to, no longer be just the Wednesday night pay-per-view or a random afternoon on Fox Sports Net, but we're going to be on a major cable system in prime time, who better to debut with than the best wrestler in the world?
You're right about that. I was the best wrestler in the world at the time. At least I thought I was. And I think a lot of fans would have agreed at that particular time.
Somewhere in here, what always threw me off is I think your manager at the time, Mr. Dave Hawk, announced that you were going to retire as a professional wrestler to become a full-time MMA fighter. Was that ever the actual plan, or was that always, as Vince would say, a swerve, bro?
That was a swerve, bro. That was because TNA didn't want anybody to know that I was debuting there. And I also didn't want anybody to know. So we kept it very hush. Our meetings were very private. Whenever I go to meet with Dixie or Jeff, there would only be like 3 people in the room, and they'd have to sign NDAs that they couldn't say anything or they'd get sued. So there was a lot of hush going on during that particular time.
Also, again, I don't want to get too much into the details of your contract, but I've always been fascinated by this. Apparently there was a carve out that you asked for that you could do MMA. So you could do these outside deals, including mixed martial arts. Dixie was okay with that.
Dixie was okay with that. As dumb as it sounded, that's what I wanted at that time. And that's what I was trying to get. I still wanted to get a big fight or a few big fights. And, that's why I was training MMA at the same time as when I signed with TNA. So it would have been almost impossible, though. I wouldn't have been able to compete at my fullest potential if I was still pro wrestling. And I didn't understand that at that time. All I was seeing was dollar signs. And that was enough for me at that particular time to want to do it. So, and I'm glad I didn't, because I don't know if I would have ended my career, something freak accident.
Sure.
During an MMA fight. So you never know what could happen. And I don't think you can fight and wrestle at the same time. I don't think anybody can.
I want to mention too, because we have talked a lot about money here, and you've laid out that was a primary focus. You have to appreciate Kurt's mentality at the time. He's coming off of all these brutal injuries. He's broken his neck multiple times. So even though we haven't overtly said it here on this show, we should now. You're probably wondering, I don't know how much longer I can do this, so I need to make as much money as I can right now, right?
Yes, and that was my mindset. That's why I wanted to do MMA. I didn't know how long I was going to be able to stand this constant beating of my body. And so I was looking for bigger paydays, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to do MMA as well, is to make more money quicker.
When you were, we talked about Unforgiven, and you had your whole family there, and of course all your brothers were there. And you said last week that, your brothers weren't always super supportive of pro wrestling, but when they know you're flirting with the idea of MMA, were they all gung ho for that? They had seen you kick ass in amateur. Were they ready for that?
They were excited. Yes.
Yeah.
They wanted me to do it. So they were part of the reason why I wanted to do it. They were pushing me into doing it. So those are my brothers, man. They're badasses, and they always will be.
So let's catch you up here. You go to Nashville on September 20th to film secret vignettes in a local warehouse. That's hard to believe that this was 15 years ago. Meltzer would write, TNA did not even allow its regular television crew to film it. They used a different crew and made everyone sign confidentiality papers. They filmed it at midnight in the hopes no one would see. And the only thing that did get out is they hired several local independent workers to set up a ring, paid them well, but again, made them sign confidentiality agreements. But none of them saw Angle. They all left confused, believing that nobody ever got in the ring they set up. And then Angle wrote a 6-page handwritten thank you letter to Carter that day, which apparently she was touched by. So I love this double secret probation, off location, not our regular crew. We're going to shoot it at midnight. No one will be there. That's fun stuff. And I appreciate that they went to such great lengths to sort of keep it a secret. But what can you tell us about this thank you letter that you wrote to Dixie?
Well, I just want to let her know how grateful I was, her giving me an opportunity to continue my career, knowing that I had some serious injuries, and that could come back to haunt me. So she was taking a chance with me, and I knew that. So I was just trying to tell her how grateful I was. And I felt like this was my new life and my new career, and it was a new beginning. And I was very excited about my journey forward.
A little snippet of your letter here that you wrote to Dixie. This is handwritten on a hotel notepad in a Nashville hotel. Quote, being with TNA feels like I finally found my home. I had fun in WWE at certain times, but I was never really happy. Now being a part of TNA, I know I have a purpose. I feel like I'm a part of history, a part of a company that's not only on the rise, not only going to be #1 watched wrestling show in the world within a short period of time, but TNA gives me an opportunity to spread my wings. The company has no limits to where it can go. The sky's the limit. And the main reason is because they brought back the real into wrestling. And that is a perfect fit for the greatest wrestler in USA Olympic history. I have room to grow here and to help TNA grow. Working for these caring and very giving employees of TNA makes me feel like I have a purpose and that the sky's the limit. I don't feel trapped or held back like I did in the first 6 years in my tenure with the other company. They held me back. Now our wonderful audience will see the real Kurt Angle doing what I love to do, real wrestling. And that's what puts a smile on my face each time I come to work. I even smile when I think about it. TNA will be the most watched wrestling television show on cable television. It's only a matter of time. Now I get the opportunity and privilege of being part of it. Thank you, TNA, for saving my career, my life, and desire to do what I love. I'll be here in some capacity for the rest of my life. That's real, damn real. Boy, what a nice note to hand Dixie. Look at you.
I'm such a good guy.
So tell me about these vignettes that you shot and what that process was like. We heard what Meltzer said happened. What really happened? What do you remember about putting those together?
Well, they were very quick. There was a background lights and water falling, and it was just me like doing poses and, revealing myself at the end of the pay-per-view when I made my debut.
I remember it well.
It's real. It's damn real. And I started laughing. Those were the vignettes that I did. Didn't take us very long. We got them done and we were out of there.
And I think the big reveal also used your mouthpiece. What do you remember of that? Because that was a fun little way to make the reveal, I thought.
Yeah, I got to use the mouthpiece. I don't know what was written on it. I think it was just completely black, right?
I don't know. I thought it had, I could be wrong, but I thought it said something on it. I don't know. I just remember I ordered that pay-per-view. I did not know you were going to be a part of the show. And then when it airs at the end,
everybody thought it was Goldberg.
Everybody went nuts. It was huge. It was a major moment.
I was scared when they were chanting Goldberg. I'm like, oh shit. I hope they're not disappointed. It's me.
Buddy, nobody has ever been disappointed that it was Kurt Angle and not Goldberg. Let's jump into some questions. Rajiv wants to know, was signing with TNA your way of saying, I'll show you what you lost, WWE? Or did you actually feel TNA was a desirable place to be at this time?
The reason I signed with TNA, and there's nothing wrong with this, but when you're in WWE, it's a huge company.
Yeah.
It's bigger than you.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. You can have the greatest career of all time. You're not going to make a bigger impression on the company than the company itself.
Yeah.
TNA, it's a smaller company. You're the big name in the company. You're carrying the company on your back. You're building that company. You're making it into a WWE. You have a purpose that way. So, when you're in WWE, you're never bigger than the product. When you're in TNA, you are bigger than the product that's carrying that product to another level. There's a bigger purpose in it.
Well said. Another one here from Denovius. He says, after you left WWE for TNA, do you have any baggage that was affecting morale, or did you let it go and see this opportunity as a fresh start no matter what?
I had a lot of baggage, but I let it all go. I didn't bring that baggage with me. I had a new mindset, a new attitude, and I was the same old Kurt Angle that started out in WWE his rookie year, and I was very excited about it.
Jeremy Priest says, how emotional were you debuting in TNA? You had a heck of a run in WWE, and now you changed directions. What was going through your mind? I guess better said, Kurt, did you feel like you had something to prove? Did you feel like you needed to prove it to WWE, to yourself? Or was it really more about, hey, I'm going to have a good time and I'm going to help these guys grow?
It was about me proving myself that I could be a formidable player and make a company grow bigger than it was. And I think I did a good job at that. It wasn't just me, though. It was a lot of other wrestlers in that company. But I wanted to show that I had a purpose in my life, and that purpose was TNA, and I can make this company grow. It never became as big as WWE, but there were times where the ratings started to get fairly close. We were doing 2 million viewers a week, 2.1 million viewers a week on Spike, which was a big deal for TNA at the time. I think this is around 2009, 2010. And it made me feel very good as a representative of the company that I was one of the main reasons for that.
Luke from Eastern Iowa wants to know, going into TNA, who were some of the people you were looking forward to working with?
Oh gosh, a lot of them. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Sting, Scotty Steiner, James Storm, Bobby Roode, Eric Young, Jay Lethal, so many talented individuals. The list goes on and on. Magnus, there are a lot of great guys. And the women, they had a great reputation of being the best women wrestlers in the world. The Knockouts had a great reputation at the time. So it was a very good company with a lot of talent.
if memory serves, the first time we see you actually come through a curtain in TNA, you're getting in the ring and doing a stare down with Samoa Joe. Why was he the right guy?
I don't know. I did not like that because Samoa Joe was undefeated. And I felt like if I came in the company and started out with someone else, Joe and I could work up to each other in 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Really build our program. But they wanted to slingshot this thing and make it, do it really quickly. And unfortunately, I ended Joe's undefeated streak, the first pay-per-view I came in, or when I wrestled. I did that pay-per-view, but the second pay-per-view when I wrestled, I beat Samoa Joe and ended his undefeated streak. It made no sense at all. I just felt like we could have built this up. We could have done a lot more pay-per-view buys if we would have built it the correct way instead of slingshotting it. But that's what the company wanted, so that's what I did.
We'll talk about that another time, but next week I'm excited because we're going to do a watch along, and we've had a lot of fun with those. Next week we're going to be doing the Iron Man match for you versus Shawn Michaels. It went down on October 3rd, 2005. Boy, an Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels. Sign me up. That's going to be a good episode next week, dude.
It will be a great episode. I can't wait to do the watch along.
And I'll tell you what, if you're going to be in an Iron Man match, you're going to need some extra protein, and I know where to get it. Physicallyfit.com. You want to be sure to use that promo code AnglePod, and you'll save 20% off all of the chicken snacks and Snack Smart opportunities, including sriracha, jalapeno ranch, cinnamon swirl, which is probably number one, Kung Pao, sweet barbecue, buffalo wing, and blue cheese pizza. You got something for everybody at physicallyfit.com, don't you, Kurt?
Yes, we do. A lot of great flavors. Everybody loves the taste. Their chicken snacks, Snack Smart, crispy protein bites, organic plant protein. You have your choice between the plant protein and the chicken snacks, the chicken protein. But order them at physicallyfit.com. You're going to love them.
I can't recommend it enough. See what everybody else already knows. By the way, they're only $9.99. You're going to save 20% on your entire order. So order multiple bags and it's 20% off every bit of it. You're only going to see roughly 100 calories per serving. I'm taking a look at the buffalo wing and blue cheese. But dude, you got 10 grams of protein in there. So that's 20% of what you need for the doggone day in a single serving. And it tastes great too, right, Kurt?
Yeah, the flavor is incredible. We have a bunch of them, like you said, sriracha, sweet barbecue, buffalo wing and blue cheese, cinnamon swirl, a bunch of great flavors. You're going to absolutely love them. So
check it out. With your 20% off, you're going to be under $8. And there's seven servings per container. So you're paying just over $1 a snack? That's unbelievable. Check it out. Physicallyfit.com. Kurt, I don't know if you saw people on Twitter, but somebody said the other day, this is not just good by itself. They're mixing this into other stuff. It's a great topper. It's filled with protein and it tastes great. It adds some crunch. People are getting creative with chicken snacks, man.
They are. They're getting creative, putting them on salads, putting them on ice cream,
sandwiches, everything.
Yeah, your favorite dessert. You just add protein to your favorite dessert. So whatever way you're going to eat it, you're going to get your protein.
I mean, really think about that. The cinnamon with the ice cream, I could go for that. And I could also go for a hookup over at kurtanglebrand.com. If you haven't already, check it out. He's got everything you could want. You want to send a video message for someone in your life who's a big wrestling fan? No problem. What if you could send them a Kurt Angle birthday card? They're never going to, all right, grandma's going to slip them a 5 in a birthday card, but Kurt Angle sent them a birthday card. That's awesome. And they've also got all of your different t-shirts, all the different merch. Maybe my favorite piece of merch, the little cowboy hats or the little milk cartons. Of course, you can get autographed 8x10s and photos and whatnot. But how cool is this? I don't think a lot of people are doing this. You'll actually sign stuff for people. So if you met Kurt before at a meet and greet or a convention or whatever, maybe you've got one of his old title belts as a replica, he'll autograph that, get it back to you. All the details are over at kurtanglebrand.com. And you've made it very affordable for everyone, right, Kurt?
Yes, my prices for my merchandise, very affordable. I wanted to make sure that everybody could afford it. Very low prices. And that's a thank you to all the fans that have supported me throughout my entire career.
The best way to support the show is to go to kurtanglebrand.com, pick up what you're looking for all things Kurt Angle. And of course, we would love to have a 5-star review. If you think we've earned it, tell your friends about your new favorite wrestling podcast. It's the Kurt Angle Show. And we'll be back next week talking about the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels right here on the Kurt Angle Show. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.